All right, welcome back to the program. Paul Alaje, the senior economist at SPM Professionals, is joining me right here. Good morning, Paul, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you so very much for having me.
Where should we start from? Labor strike. You are coming from the airport. Can you give me a situation report?
Airport, Lagos still looks very normal.
Okay.
Unlike what we saw, I think, was that not last week in Abuja, where the Nigeria Labour Congress had occupied the road. I was in that, I was there,
You were caught there.
Yeah, I was caught, of course. Trek for about 5 kilometers to the airport, and funnily enough, the flight was not disrupted by that particular airline. I didn't want to mention it because they will need to pay you for hard. So the airline flew as scheduled. Today, a number of persons were not sure whether flight will be up or not. But the airline I chose, of course, flew from Lagos to Abuja. So which
They
means
left on time?
Yeah, on
They
time.
were not disrupted?
No disruption. So, but you know, when labor strike starts, day one, you may not really feel it until the third day. That's when you see. We hear that in some places there is some level of compliance, but maybe by tomorrow or latest Thursday, we might see increased level of compliance. But I must stress this as economist, this strike will not be without a cost. Somebody must pay for it. Already, the GDP of Nigeria is expected to nosedive from what we saw last year. By the end of this year, is expected to be around 2.2 to 2.5%.
Is that your own forecast?
Yes.
Because Q1 2.5, Q2 2.3, so third quarter is not out yet.
So we're looking at...
And we're still in fourth quarter.
We're between 2 to 2.5%, and the reasons are obvious. Price of everything is going up. It is not because the economy is growing. It is because there is high inflation in the country. By year end, you are looking at 2.2, 2.3%.
Average,
which is far lower than what we have last year. So if we now go on strike and we're down to what grows economy is that economic activity moving around, people, mobility of labor, exchange of goods and services. So if we down twos, what we're saying is that we want the growth of the economy to further reduce. So, but that does not mean that the labor should be blamed or government should be blamed. I think we need to understand that the stakeholder here, which includes the government and labor, need to start a conversation. What do we want for Nigeria? How predictable is it? The president went to Saudi Arabia to talk about investor. How will it be if, as the Minister of Investment in Saudi Arabia, I come to Nigeria and I'm stranded? The labor of that country I want to invest has locked the exit gate from the airport. Like what happened literally last week. The airport exit gate, arrival gate, was shut. Once you disembark and you leave the airport and you are about to travel, about to leave Bill Clinton Road, it was locked. Labor put a vehicle to block it. So is that the kind of thing you want? So if there are things that government can have with the labor, I think before it is too late, so that the effort we are putting in place to go to India, to go to Abu Dhabi, and to go to, Saudi Arabia, will not be in vain. Because unfortunately, the world now lives on a screen. Single screen called social media. Everybody is looking at us.
What kind of soft landing do you expect, especially from this strike? And I know why I'm asking this question again. You alluded a bit to it. Soft landing is in the sense that labor is talking tough. Federal government is also talking tough. Federal government is taking labor to court. Federal government mentioned yesterday that this is just a personal, is it because of a personal issue that you are putting the whole country, that is, you're making the whole country stand still?
It's a very dicey issue.
So where will the soft landing be? And the two elephants are fighting, the grass will suffer. The grass, of course, is the rest of us, Nigerians. So where will that soft landing come from? That's one. The second question to you also is around negotiating skills. It's around perhaps each of the party, I don't know, using emotional intelligence at this point, because it seems that even on both sides, I'm not seeing so much of emotional
balance.
Yes, emotional intelligence in terms of handling the situation. So
this is what I think we should understand. Mr. Ajero was nobody to most Nigerians in 2014. Nobody cares to know Ajero or Ajero. Nobody cares. He suddenly became the NLC leader. Remember that his name came up in the media when there was a fractional labor group. So from that time, some of us that are watchers of economists, we started looking out for him because we have not seen that in a long time for us to have a fractional labor team. But he now headed the same labor team he created a parallel against, and the former administration actually registered that organization, you know, just to fight to have another force apart from the labor force. So here is it, apart from the labor union, I beg your pardon. So here is it. He is now the labor leader. If it were nobody, it will not make the headline. Nobody will speak about it. It is because he's the head of Nigerian labor union. That is why he made the headline. So if it's a personal, I don't think it's such a personal issue. Now, there could be political intricacies in it, but we are not politicians. We are purely professionals. So here is it. I think, so that answers the question as to personal issue. It's not so personal because you can argue it for both personal and non-personal. But here is the real conversation here. So what is the negotiation skill? What Labour is alleging is Labour is accusing the governor of the state, which has just been re-elected, according to INEC. And the federal government is saying it has nothing to do with Nigeria. It has everything to do with that, the leader of that state, and your members in that state. So what I would expect is, because this will now cost the whole Nigeria, the federal government, either an appointee of the president, should call the governor and the labor leader, because the governor said he was surprised in an interview I saw. So if the governor is saying he's surprised, Labour is complaining, federal government is surprised, then why don't you let us come to a conversation? Let us discuss. So that surprise, is it political surprise or is it that he's really surprised? Then Labour can't put name to those who drag their leader, instead of us, you know, bringing down the economy that is extremely fragile. What many people don't know is that this economy is fragile. Recall that before we saw what happened in Sri Lanka, the indicator that we are seeing now were the beginning. It was only 18 months after this kind of indicator that Sri Lanka had a mass protest that took away the leader of that country. Why? They had FS scarcity, they had fuel crisis, they had a number of crises. I am hopeful that Nigeria will not get there. And that is why I saw the president. People will think this president, most of this international trip, apart from his personal trip, has been to look for investors. The truth is, what we need the most today is that investment. And that investment must be in FX. Because if we don't, I can tell you, I don't know what the next 2 years will look like. Remember the last time I spoke with you, I think it was via Zoom, when we discussed IMF report. And I think you were the one that anchored the program for IMF staff report. And we're saying that by 2025, and that forecast is not completely wrong, even in spite of government removal of subsidy, the impact of devaluation of FX, the truth is what we will spend to service debt, because we are still collecting debt. We're still raising bonds, we're still raising treasury bills, you know, domestically, and internationally, government is still open to raising bonds, you know, maybe green bond or whatever name we want to call it. How much will we have to service our debt in the coming period? Will that reduce? Will that increase? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that we need to move fast. Labour should not be a form of distraction, quote and unquote, even though they have a reason for what they are saying. And I think government should address that issue ASAP. I want to believe that the president in office will be proactive to quickly call one or two persons and see how they can converge, meet, and perhaps do the needful regarding the issue of labor.
It's really a dicey situation.
Very dicey.
Dicey situation that just a few months after Tinubu's presidency, Labour is going on a
and
nationwide.
Watch out for ASU.
ASU has directed his members to join already.
Oh, okay.
The president of ASU has directed his members to join, and that is not good news for Nigeria's educational sector, which I will come back in a bit.
Okay.
No,
let me quickly say this.
Yeah.
You see, what Nigerian authorities don't know very carefully is that when ASU joins a strike, you are giving protest a lifeline. Why was NSAS very strong?
Because ASU
students were at home. Your economy is very fragile. And you heard that the legion, people that are taming the legion of people, these guys are IT guys. They can organize themselves online. They can use WhatsApp to organize themselves. And you heard ASU wants to join. It's more dangerous than the entire labor. Because the owner of the country are people below 35 years.
Yeah.
If you check their numbers, so a significant part of them, ASU, ASUP, and the rest, NATS, SANO, they said we are also joining labor. Then you should know that if you don't take care, within 2 weeks, we may not understand what we will see. That is why I think federal government should quickly go beyond what has happened beyond Labour and Imo State. Imo State is 1 out of 37 subnational. So government need to intervene so that we don't lose. We understand that we may not grow as much as what we had in 2023. Anybody telling us we have such growth is just lying to us. We may not have up to 3% GDP growth rate. Now, should we now maintain the 2% that we are hopeful that we'll get, or reduce it to 1 or negative? I don't think we should. What we should do as government is to call Labour, have conversation with Labour and all other warring parties. So we should do that.
We have now a Minister of Labour and a Minister of State for Labour.
Can the Minister of Labour call the governor of the state? Because Labour was very clear.
He was a former governor, so they should wear colleagues.
But I think the office of the president and Senate president, they are two important offices. We need to escalate this. NSAS started. There were warnings, there were advice. I was on your show, I was on 3 other shows to say that your students are at home. You may not be able to handle what is coming. But we saw it at home. Normal Nigeria can expect. What happened at the end of NSAS? What happened at the end? So I am not saying people should not protest. I am saying that if you can avert it, if there are things you can do for people, and grievances are high now, what is the price of PMS? What was it 6 months ago? What is the price of bread today? What was it 6 months ago?
Hunger
deprivation, they are everywhere. So, and the idle land is the devil's workshop. Unfortunately, if you go check that workshop, there are no pen, what he has is pistol, cutlasses, and weapons of war. I hope that we'll not get to that situation.
That was why I asked the question around emotional intelligence earlier, because I was deliberate in terms of the two warring. Okay, Labour will say that Labour is at war with the federal government, but I don't know if federal government is at war with Labour, especially bearing the situation right now. But emotional intelligence is really needed, and the denominator in all of this is Hope Uzodinma, the governor of Imo State, like you said. Perhaps now that he's a bit relaxed, he's won his election, perhaps we would see something coming from that area. But let's move over to President Tinubu's foreign trips. He's in Saudi Arabia now, but yesterday, while still in Saudi Arabia, we also got the news that some Nigerians that traveled could not come down and they were not admitted. Saudi Arabia still flexing the power. And a lot of people said yesterday, I read a lot of commentaries, oh, disgrace, all of this. How do you judge President Tinubu's investment proposition? Because since he came in, he's been wearing the toga of capitalism. So how do you judge President Tinubu's investment proposition to other countries, as well as his foreign trips? I heard you clearly earlier that what he needs to do now is investment, and that investment should be in FX to solve the FX liquidity crisis. I understand that. But is there also something President Tinubu needs to do while at home? Because while he's going abroad to go and seek faces of foreigners, many of us at home are not finding it funny. So how does it balance it?
Okay, so,
2 questions now, isn't it?
So you see, from the beginning, errors have been committed, economic errors. The president came to perform surgery, but unfortunately, when he got to the surgery room, NEPA took light.
There's no NEPA again.
Yeah, so I deliberately use that language. I don't want to indict any of the discourse. So let me use the umbrella. The PHCN, the defunct PHCN, took off the light. So the president needs to use his searchlight to start searching, and that will take more time, or that will weary him. Here is the point. The president must start from his home. The president should understand the power he has, which is over 220 million people. It cannot be going to countries with a bow to say, come to my country. These are investors. He knows too much. He knows too well that capitalism is not about begging. Capitalism is about speaking from a vantage position. Which position are we? That's what we talk
No,
about.
but we have strengths too. We're Africa's biggest economy. We're Africa's biggest, largest oil producer.
That
We have a
African beef,
population
our back is very
of
hot
200.
now. We have South Africa and Egypt that are really running close to us. I think because we have decided to change our boot while the race was on, and the remaining two countries are now getting really, really close to us. So talk about African biggest economy is not what matters. What matters is what amount of production is happening in our shores. So if Saudi Arabia says we are not investing in your country, so what happens? Will they feel it? If India say we are not going to buy from you, what happens? So we need to have our comparative cost advantage. We need to have something that we make countries to necessarily
So what
buy
will
from
that
us.
be?
I'll tell you a number of them. Why have we not been able to pay the UAE? And it seems like the conversation is on and on. Different
That's about
arguments.
$800 million.
About 800 million. Whether government has paid part or not is a different kettle of fish. Here is it. We are buying from UAE. We are buying air tickets consistently. What is UAE buying from us? And how more can we negotiate? So instead of telling UAE, give our people visa, let's do business together, I would do differently. I would say that you need XYZ, you are buying from this country. We can give you a better proposition of the same thing you are buying from them. That we have, it could be raw material, it could be seed, it could be anything that Nigeria has. Nigeria is not that standard. So if we do that, then we can say, you buy from us, but you pay us in dirhams. So the money we want to pay you, that you want in dollar, we pay you in naira. Then we can swap. This is what China is doing. Nigeria signed currency.
But the dollar will be the base rate.
No.
No, the
See,
dollar will be
the UAE has a fixed rate to the dollar.
Yes, I know.
3.65. 3.65. So it's as good as the deal is very easy with them because they are fixed rate. 3.65 standard is globally known. So we can come out of this issue with
That's
them.
a fixed exchange
That's
rate.
No, go to
From
China.
them.
No, go to China. Go to China. China said Nigeria has a currency swap deal with them.
Yes, with them.
But why did it not work? Has it worked? People are saying because we have not identified competitive advantage over China. With all that we export, what can we be giving to China and tell China, don't pay us in dollars, pay us in your local currency? So when you devalue, we gain.
But if they pay us in their local currency, what would happen at the Central Bank of Nigeria?
Good news for Central Bank of Nigeria.
Yeah, because we have even a Nigeria's China swap. It has not been
Why? Because we want to use one hand to clap. Because we want to still deal in the dollar. We are saying that we have currency swap. What you see, economy is about demand and supply. What are you selling? You want to be rich, but you don't want to do business. Yahoo. We must have something to sell to China. And we must sell large enough, possibly larger than China is giving us our shoes, our high glasses.
Which is also a difficult thing with China, that is the world's producing hub. Because China is one country, I'm not berating them, but I think they've just lent it. People call them a copycat nation. You do something, China will copy. Whatever it is, they are very good doing that right now. So it's even difficult. What are we even going to, I'm not saying it's not possible. What are we going, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
Is it palm oil or what was it again that I learned that Chinese were importing from China? I was like, palm oil again? Do you understand? So it's like everything Nigeria has, China is there. And we are importing from them. And it's surprisingly cheaper, because their system also encourages export, their system encourages manufacturing, their Exim Bank.
No, China is still buying cocoa.
Do you know that cocoa in Ghana, the Ghanaian cocoa traders were crying, was it last year or 2 years ago, that China wants to take over?
Yes.
In the same Ghana.
In the same Ghana. So here is
And Ghana is one of the, if not the largest producer of cocoa.
Yes, it is because of our poor negotiating skill. Can a Nigeria...
we are not, we are not negotiating from a vantage
position. Now, can Nigerians...
that we don't have money.
Can the man
Our economic power is not big.
Listen to this. Can the person building private refinery go to China and own the private refinery there and say Nigerian?
It's not
Do
possible.
you think Chinese government will look at that?
They will not agree.
Africans are too laid back in their so-called laissez-faire economy that is killing us. So we must get to a point to know that this is our lifeline. Donald Trump, the president of America, sells truth to the world. He said, America first. If you want to keep surviving, if not, China will put us in their pockets.
And he fought with the
And he fought. Now, it started with trade war before COVID came. In 2019, we already knew there was going to be a global economic crisis. People wonder why COVID has so much potency. It was because America and China had trade war in 2019. So when COVID came, it saw so many economic crises on ground, and it was able to penetrate into the souls of the global economy. So here is it. What can we give to China? A lot.
Like what now? Give me, because
I'm
struggling to.
We have
get
we have
it.
sesame seed.
Yes, sesame seed
in abundance.
We have cassava.
We have cassava. China needs that. So, but you see, if you put all
China
of this
needs
together,
food to feed its people.
Exactly, and we have some that we can give them.
But have we fed ourselves?
It's not about feeding ourselves.
It's about
ethics.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
So, what can we sell to China? That deal is still on the table. Everywhere you grow rice. Not everywhere. Some places where you grow rice, you can also grow wheat. Not everywhere, but some places. But how much of those have we maximized? Can we also say that China, you can come to Nigeria as an extension for manufacturing, where you pay a fee? What would that mean to revenue to Nigeria? That is what some African countries have woken up to, because there are countries, there are businesses in China that Chinese Export and Import Bank are supporting to go to other countries for production. It is not about which country owns the production. It's about the production happening on your soil because of taxes, revenue, and jobs that we create. Can we have this conversation with China and say, China, you know what? Pay all monies to come to Nigeria as a trading partner in your local currency, but on one condition. You will never ask us to give you the dollar. Even if you owe, it will be in your local currency. So when it's devalued, our naira will be stronger to pay back. That is a negotiation. We can look for top 12 trade partners of Nigeria. Then the pressure we have on our foreign reserve will reduce, but that is not the permanent solution.
Which is also long-term. Because what
it's
you
not
said now, no, it's not short-term now.
No. If President Buhari has continued what he signed in 2016 or 2017,
China
yes, China, so we will not be here. By 2020, tops, we would not be here.
No, why
so
I'm
the
saying
challenge
is a long-term issue is that if you're saying that President Tinubu should, get top 12 trading partners of Nigeria and say, this guys, let's sit at the table. For example, you've cited China. Let's get China to start producing, have a production manufacturing hub here in the country.
Production manufacturing is long term.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm talking of our exports to them. That's the first thing I mentioned. That is short term. You can achieve that in 1 to 2 years. Production will take about 5 years because you first need to get environment. But you know, government must be responsible for power production.
Yeah.
So there is no conversation we have around.
So perhaps a special economic zone
will be created for that purpose. But what can drive it down? Government have done it. In fact, people call it fluke. Anytime president or central bank governor, the current or past, have said, we have taken the decision, we are going to combat high exchange rates. What happens to price exchange rate? It goes down. So government should know that there is something media has. Government could consult business people in media. What they will say is not what I can say on here. So, but there are powers that guys in the media has. Once you hear it and it go viral, speculators that have no business importing, they just kept the money, they've earned their salary, 120,000. How much is it in dollar they've converted? Hoping that when naira devalues, they will change it back to naira and become richer. Meanwhile, it is foolishness. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to use the word on air. It is foolishness because by the time you go back to the same market, prices of goods have increased. So are you really benefiting in the real sense? So government now need to partner with the media, especially the Central Bank of Nigeria, to chart a new conversation and give hope truly to the people and discourage those who are holding the money, because at the end of the day, the gateway to our life, our here is very significant.
Very important.
So everybody believes that naira will be devalued anyway. What does that mean? Confidence issue. What is fueling exchange rate is confidence. So you say that people should earn at about 700 or 800 at official rate. Meanwhile, they know that if they cross the road from the banking zone 4 to zone 4 corner, they will get it 1,130. So they say, why do I want to lose? It's a commercial value, 330 naira. Meanwhile, but if government engage, and I mean this is a short-term solution, what they will say is not what we can discuss because there are details that we cannot discuss on screen. If government engage and start putting this point with the action plan, which are real things, not just words of mouth, I can tell you that in 2 months, you will crash that figure to about 800 or 700.
I understand what you're saying, and I think I've also said it here on the program that in the mix of all we need proper information management right now, especially coming from the Apex Bank. I don't know if you heard me earlier on when I did speak about inflation, and we'll be coming to that in a bit. The CBN has not done MPC now, September and November, even though I'm also getting snippets that with 4 MPCs we are okay for the year. But let's see how it goes. Even at that, information management, that word, or those 2 words have been coming to me at least since this administration started, in terms of, you know, putting out the proper information. Because just like you said, we go here, and business really is about is hearing. They always say,
my favorite book says, faith cometh
by hearing, and hearing
by this word. So the same with business. What people hear is what people will believe.
Yeah, what people hear moves them.
Yes.
To either
to decide. So, but what you are saying, if the world is saying their own, speculators are combating against our economy. They have actually tied a rope on the neck of the economy, and they want to draw it. And if they draw it, I tell you, by March it's going to 1,005. But what do? Cut off the hand. Take their hands off us. Remove the rope tied on our neck by providing accurate information of clear merchant plan while the president is moving around the world, while we review some of the power arrangement to ensure that we create special zones, which are now long-term solutions. So there is short-term, there is very short-term, what we are discussing now, there is short-term, which is sub, there is also mid-term solution, and the long-term solution. But we must not start from the long-term solution of saying, come and invest or in Nigeria today. And I heard the minister saying that it's going to be immediate. You heard when we also heard from the spokesperson of the president that it will be immediate. The immediate seems not to be immediate because economists
which also
cannot
sent a bad signal.
Exactly. So, but you see, when the speculator knows that you cannot trust government,
that we don't get ourselves. That Nigerians
exactly.
are not serious.
Exactly.
They may say one thing in the morning and something else happens in the evening, which is very bad for business. That's what's called uncertainty.
Exactly.
In business. Okay.
And confidence, uncertainty, and confidence, they are permanent enemies. You cannot have confidence when there is uncertainty. So if you promote uncertainty with the words of your mouth, even though you don't mean it, business don't have the capacity. It doesn't have a mind of its own. What it has is the number of information that is available to markets, and that is what market will use to take her decision or its decision.
Let's talk about inflation now. What kind of data should we expect from the MBS tomorrow? Inflation, the last inflation data was 26.72, if I'm not mistaken. That's for September.
Yes.
So what do you see when NBS releases inflation data tomorrow? Then number 2, I want to ask you a key questions on inflation, and God help me and you as it's coming. So the first one is, what do you foresee for inflation tomorrow? Then number 2 is the inflationary trend that we have seen now for the past 2 years. Where do we have pain points? Then number 3, how much room does it give the Central Bank of Nigeria in terms of control? Because we've seen that the Nigerian inflation is compounded, as it were, where we're seeing non-monetary actors play a significant role. That's 3. 4, the limitation of monetary policy, which is also closely tied to what I asked earlier, in terms of what other tools can the Central Bank of Nigeria use to manage this inflation. Emir Sanusi went to the Central Bank, I think 2 weeks ago, some days ago, and spoke to Cardoso and did say, CBN, guys, you guys should fix this high inflation. But I'm wondering, and when I saw it, I was like, Emir, Nigeria of those days is not Nigeria of now. No, I wonder if it was even Sanusi that was central bank governor, what will happen? Because Nigeria of many years ago, when Sanusi left the central bank governor, a lot of things have changed.
No, what the Emir needs to know, that we are not in 2023 in Nigeria. We are best in 2000. We are best in 19. I think I can say we are in 1963, because the economy has reversed.
So what I'm hearing you say is that the former president, President Buhari, took us back.
Exactly.
That's what I'm hearing you say.
And this is the reason. Economics is not emotional. Economy is not biased. And I'm really hoping that this president will engage on his gear 5, on his 5th gear, to push this economy back to 2020 or 2023. You see, there are indicators for knowing when last did we have double-digit inflation sustained for a long time.
It was
during the Civil War.
Very long time
During
ago.
the Civil War,
Yeah.
that was when we had it. So this, you can say this economy is in
1960 something.
60 or 70.
Yes, in
that
the
is
60,
that is where we are.
70.
Inflation is a key thing that determines whether people even invest in your country or they will not invest in your country. I understand there are global economic crises, and unfortunately, President Buhari was president while these things was going on. But how innovative were his men? Because it is easy to accuse President Buhari. He had men. He said it the first media engagement on economy. He said, I am not an economist. I will rely 100% on my Minister of Finance and the central bank governor. He said, I will rely totally on them. I am best when it comes to protecting the country. And we saw the effort. So I cannot 100% yake for. He also had men like Fashola who did some wonderful road projects in Nigeria. So I'm not saying the administration is totally wrong, but I'm saying that in terms of economy. That administration took Nigeria at least 50 years backward. That's the truth. Now, so here is it. So can we now say that inflation will reduce, or when MBS is publishing figure tomorrow, the answer is no. Why? Because we have not gotten to the point of deflection. It is expected that inflation will still increase. You might be seeing sustained 26 or going to 27% when it comes to inflation numbers. That said, that's for tomorrow. Two, what is the role of the central bank? I can tell you that central bank has lost control of monetary of inflation in terms of using monetary control, because what we are battling with, one is money illusion. Government has even said it's pumping 35,000, and on one hand you want to pump 35,000, on the other hand central bank will now say, oh, there is too much money chasing fewer goods, we need to increase. So fiscal is pushing more money.
But it's against fiscal deficit too, because we are also suffering from a fiscal deficit.
Apart from that, we also
do you understand what I'm saying?
I agree with you 100%.
Fiscal deficit, we also have rising commodity prices, oil prices also increasing, that is also fueling global inflation.
Exactly.
Yet Nigeria is not also earning money from the oil which God has blessed us with, which is very tragic. Supply chain disruptions too. These were some of the issues why I called it earlier a compounded inflation conundrum.
And when you look at what is fueling inflation in Nigeria, we have an habit, not because we wanted to adopt the habit, because production is not sufficient enough in our country. Okay. So is central bank going to start producing? The answer is no. Central bank, under the last dispensation, started supporting farmers in terms of rice production, cassava production, and so on and so forth. What is the average price of rice in harvest season today? The price is increasing, is worse off than what we have it, even though overall inflation has major role to play in all of those conversations. But here is it. Central bank alone cannot control, because what is fueling this inflation? We have imported inflation. We also have rural inflation. Food inflation is over 30%. And food inflation in the last 1 year has been the pointer to where inflation is going into.
So what should this administration do now? You said, of course, what should the central bank governor do? Though Cardoso has also said, we are not doing interventions. We are taking our hands off. So I expect, what should the fiscal side do now in terms of food? Because also that's...
The real side is not monetary or fiscal. The real side is trade. That is what many people are not discussing. I'll tell you what government, which is fiscal, and trade should do in partnership with central bank. And when we say that they are not converging, people can be brothers. And one is heading monetary, one is heading fiscal, one is heading trade. If their policies are not converging, we say they are not talking. That's an economic line. We don't mean they don't see themselves or they don't sit on the round table. So what should we be doing? We know our problem. Our problem is production. As a country, we have insufficiently large population, and the population we cannot say is underpopulated or overpopulated. But when we are not producing, because at the end of the day, after confidence, what matters next is productivity.
Good.
So let me conclude on this
very
stuff.
quickly.
The challenge with it is that with this large population, we cannot feed ourselves. We cannot even provide our own transport system. We cannot produce gas that will be in our car, even though the gas is under our foot when you go to Niger Delta. So how do we change the orientation of a Nigerian? That after watching Nancy's show, you are thinking of a nail to produce. You are thinking of a milk to produce. You are thinking, but because once you finish, somebody wants to take water. Be sure that the water is even imported. So how can we change that narrative? This is where we start from, but the cup may not be in Nigeria.
The cup may not be, but
even the sticker is not. No paper. All the paper on your table imported. Your imported. The glass here imported. Even if your name is Tokumbo, it could be that you are also imported. So here is it. How do we change that narrative to export?
Okay.
That is what President Tinubu and his team must get. Unfortunately,
You
if
know
we
what?
don't,
One
it's
more
going
thing,
to
I'm
be
seeing 1
an
minute,
issue.
and I need to ask you this question because it's as if you just brought me out of my den with that. You talked about productivity. Is any one of us also taking a look at how high inflation would impact productivity in the area of human capital? Nigerians now are hungrier, Nigerians are poorer, Nigerians unemployment rising, even though MBS says 4.1%. How will this inflationary trend we've seen for almost 2 years impact human capital? You're an economist, so you understand what I'm saying. Let me just break it down for our viewers. Many families cannot afford to send their children to school anymore. That will bring down productivity of Nigerians if we have people that are measuring from perhaps last year till, let's say, in the next 2 years, what will happen? Very quickly,
Well, it's
we
going
have
to be
go.
a challenge, but the president must understand that he's now the leader of the country. And as a leader of the country, they said on his lies the head that wears the crown. We have no option. It's either we get it or we fail at it. And I hope we will not fail at it. Here is the point. Is productivity naturally will nosedive when you have high inflation, when we have economic quagmire. The only direction productivity is to nosedive. However, Lin Kuan Yew showed us that it is possible to change. China, a country I used to know in the 80s as a country of fake product. Today, when China's name is mentioned, the leaders of China changed their narrative, their own narrative, not with the support of Americans, not with the support of the UK. They changed the narrative from a consuming nation, a nation that was sharing yuan to people to go to school. They changed that to a country that is producing.
Okay, I think we need to leave now.
India was known as a magical country. You see their women always with sports. We even have a story that India played with Nigeria and had 99-1. But today, when it comes to ICT of the world, what will Nigeria be known for? That is what the president must decide. From one produce to another, then we can say we can make Nigeria great again as a nation.
Paul, we'll leave it at that for now, because I can have this conversation with you for the next 1 day, isn't it?
Exactly.
We can banter like this for the next 1 day.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming. I hope that this interview, at least, you've been able to get a few insights concerning Nigeria and what we need to do. I hope that those that are supposed to be steering the wheel, called Nigeria, should be listening. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change that you want to see. I'll see you all again tomorrow. God willing, AIT Reports is next.